Dear colleagues, please take your seats. The session is open.
This morning we have distributed
Dear colleagues, so we distributed today the establishment of the World Heritage List and of the list of World Heritage in danger. It is in yellow, adoption of retrospective statement of outstanding universal value. It's on your tables. Then we distributed yesterday English version of Vifliem and today French version. And we're still pending 2 items to discuss, and all draft decisions of Ja Wildlife Reserve, Cameroon, is on your table, and Lake Turkana National Parks in your table too. So we start the examination of the draft decision of Ja Wildlife Reserve, Cameroon. Please put on the screen this draft decision. Besides the documents which I named, so you have on your table item 8B and its letters received from the state parties by 11 June 2012 concerning factual errors on their own nominations evaluation. It's on your tables too. So now we move on to the Ja Wildlife Reserve. Please, Rapporteur, remind me when we stopped.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and good morning, everyone. Actually, Madam Chairperson, we were discussing current paragraph 7, which have the several amendments proposed to this draft decision. I must point out that the paragraphs 1 to 6 have no proposed amendments. But you decided yesterday to look at the core issue of this decision before going to those paragraphs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a drafting group, and now I put on adoption the point 7 of the draft decision 36.7b.1, Ja Wildlife Reserve, Cameroon. It is proposed to delete, yes, Germany, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor, and good morning to everyone. I'm happy that we are back today on this decision today, and I hope we can find a good solution here for this really important site. I remind us all on the committee that yesterday's discussion led us to the point that we will give the country another year to work on the different issues asked by the committee. And therefore, I think it is really important that we keep this paragraph here, as this is in fact what we said last year. What we said yesterday. We'll give the country another year, and then we will consider exactly what is pointed out in paragraph 7 here in the first part of the text. This is all I would like to say in terms of paragraph 7. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What other opinions do we have? As I understand, yesterday we agreed that we delete this paragraph and give this strong instruction to the party what they have to do. Yes. Yes, it was the common, you know, spirit in which we discussed this item. Mali, please, the floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, je confirme ce que vous avez dit. Suite aux différentes informations, il y a eu une majorité qui s'est dégagée et qui était favorable, si vous voulez, au fait de surseoir à ce paragraphe et de donner une chance à l'État partie, au vu des documents présentés. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Switzerland.
Écoutez, Madame la Présidente, je ne sais pas, j'ai un petit, comment dirais-je, une petite perte de mémoire, mais moi je crois qu'effectivement la proposition de l'Allemagne est juste. Je crois que nous devons revenir au paragraphe 7 et tout découlera de là. Moi je n'avais pas compris, mais je me trompe peut-être, je n'avais pas compris que nous avions décidé de supprimer ce paragraphe.
Dear colleagues, but it was working group composed by different countries. I don't understand why we start from the beginning. Who was...
This was proposed.
It was proposed by South Africa and people supported this. Why we start from the beginning? Please, Germany.
Yes, I think, Madam Chair, in fact, there's a mistake. We wanted inscription, and we withdrew that upon the argument of South Africa that they need till 2013. And so we really insist on this. If this doesn't go, then I think it's wrongly marked, because that was the compromise we did to not inscribe it this year, but tell them for sure that it will be next year if nothing happens. And that was why we agreed to South Africa's compromise.
Senegal, please take the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Hier, nous avions voulu soutenir le pays pour qu'ils aient encore une autre chance, une autre année pour mettre en œuvre les progrès, les mesures. Donc, nous maintenons que ce paragraphe 7 soit biffé. Merci.
Thank you very much. France, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. La France soutient la proposition allemande. Merci.
Thank you very much. Germany.
I must in all clarity tell South Africa, if that is what they proposed, it was not what I heard. If that is what they proposed, I could not join him on that, and then Germany would have to insist that it is inscribed in this year. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. South Africa, please, are you agree with the arguments of Germany, France, Switzerland? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, our view is that this committee should always try to encourage state parties to do the right thing. Hence, we are saying some of the decisions should not be perceived as threat. Hence, we were suggesting the deletion of that paragraph. Because on that paragraph, there's no material issue. It's just a threat, it's our view. Because if next year this side gets discussed, we realize the state party hasn't rectified anything, we will agree with the listing in danger. But for now, we are saying, why putting it there? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we once more in difficult situation. Please, the other proposals. Senegal, please take the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Alors, c'est un pas en avant, deux pas en arrière. Ça bouge beaucoup au niveau du comité. Je crois, comme l'Afrique du Sud, qu'hier, nous avions vraiment pris la bonne résolution. Étant entendu toutes les informations que l'État parti a données, étant entendu, constaté d'ailleurs le fait qu'il n'y avait pas une menace vitale directe sur la valeur universelle exceptionnelle. Étant entendu que des mesures correctives sont en cours, je pense quand même qu'il est raisonnable de donner à l'État partie le temps d'achever ce qu'il a commencé et nous avons le temps d'en décider l'année prochaine.
Mali, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, je suis en train de chercher une formule qui arrange tout un chacun. Je voudrais, avec l'autorisation des uns et des autres, peut-être maintenir le paragraphe, mais changer, mettre inscription possible. C'est-à-dire que inscription possible du bien au patrimoine mondial en péril. C'est une innovation qui a été introduite l'année dernière à la session de Paris. L'inscription possible. Mais ça ne veut pas dire que l'inscription est immédiate. L'inscription possible. Au bout d'une année. Voilà. Je vous remercie.
South Africa, is it convenient as your understanding is like this?
Chair, in the spirit of cooperation, we cannot keep on hopping on this all the time. We will accept, Chair, in the interest of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now please look through. We agreed on the main part of this paragraph. So please look through the paragraph A of the paragraph, point A of paragraph 7. Review the limits of the iron exploration license to exclude the area inside the property. Is it okay? So, and so the other points, C, excuse me. Yes, Switzerland.
Excusez-moi, Madame la Présidente. Pour le petit A, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec les modifications proposées par l'Afrique du Sud. J'aimerais que l'on ajoute à la fin, simplement, le membre de phrase suivant et de s'assurer que cela n'a pas d'impact sur la valeur universelle exceptionnelle. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Member of the committee, do you accept this amendment? I see no objection, so can I consider that we adopt paragraph 7, main phrase and point 1? Adopted. Now we go to the point C. So define in consultation with Sud Hevea Cameroon Company the measures to be undertaken to foresee, reduce and compensate the negative effect of the agriculture exploitation project, rubber plantation, of the outstanding universal value of the property. Do you agree with this point? So adopted. Thank you very much. Now we have to adopt the paragraph 7. Are any objection to adopt this paragraph? I see none, so adopted. Now we move on to the paragraph 8. To the paragraph 8, we have some amendments here. Strengthen the human and logistic resources of the management body to enable permanent surveillance and control under normal conditions of the land and aquatic parts of the property. To this end, motorized transportation, notably aquatic, should be made available to the ECA guards. Are you agree with this? Okay, so adopted. Then it is point C, when South Africa proposed not February, July 2013. Yes, Rapporteur, please take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Of course, I cannot comment on behalf of the committee, but just to draw to your attention that normally it's a standard text on 1st February 2013, which is the date establishing the operational guidelines for presenting reports, so that the advisory bodies can have the time to evaluate the report and come with a proposed text for the next session of the committee.
Thank you very much, but it is written, if you remember, South Africa proposed that the report has to be submitted to the 38th session in 2014. That's why it was proposed, the report to be submitted in July 2013. Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just recall the discussion we had a few minutes ago that we would discuss this issue next year again. So for sure we need both the report and the thing which is requested here in 8C by the Times in February 2013 to be able to discuss this in 2013 and at our next session. So I think it's a logic to follow. Otherwise, we will not be in the possibility to discuss it next year, which would not be the right approach, I think.
Thank you very much. Switzerland.
Oui, je crois que l'Allemagne a tout à fait raison. Cela découle de ce que nous venons d'approuver au paragraphe 7. Et c'est logique que l'on garde février et qu'au paragraphe 10, on garde 37e session. Merci.
Thank you very much. South Africa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. South African delegation understand the concern of distinguished delegates of Germany and Switzerland, because the earlier one was for discussion, is our understanding. But here, on this paragraph, our understanding is for them to submit the report, State of Conservation, where we will be able to check their readiness and possible listing in danger, as agreed earlier. We're fine with that. Our issue here, Madam Chair, is the readiness of the state party. Can I request, Chair, with your permission, when time allows, to give the state party to articulate to the committee if they will be ready for these things? Perhaps they can tell the committee what they have done so far, so that we can make an informed decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Maybe we have to make the compromise and to see the progress report, because of course to fulfill all, make all negotiations and change everything what we ask maybe during, but progress report, we can see the progress report. Senegal, please take the floor.
Merci. Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous devons soutenir l'Afrique du Sud dans sa demande et que, puisque le temps qui nous sépare de février 2013 est relativement court pour que l'État puisse faire un rapport d'avancement correct. Merci.
Thank you. Switzerland.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. J'aimerais soutenir votre proposition. On ne peut pas mettre en œuvre l'article 7 l'année prochaine si on n'a pas de rapport. Peut-être qu'un rapport exhaustif, c'est trop. Effectivement, l'Afrique du Sud, le Sénégal ont raison, mais votre proposition, un rapport d'étape ou un rapport d'avancement, je trouve que c'est la solution de compromis. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. France.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Oui, tout à fait d'accord pour le rapport d'étape et le compromis. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. so we move on to point 10, and we can say that to support to the 1st of January 2013 a progress report on the implementation of the corrective measures and recommendations of the World Heritage Committee. So, please.
Madam Chair, we might be able to live with this, but then we have to have it at the next session of the World Heritage Committee, which means before July, latest February then.
Yes, yes, we speak about the normal procedure. So, to give the progress report to the 1st of February 2013, to look at, please, reporter, please formulate, you know, this item.
I'm going to read the paragraph as it will remain. Also request the state party to submit to the World Heritage Center by 1st February 2013 a progress report on the state of conservation of the property, including a detail of progress accomplished in the implementation of the corrective measures and recommendations of the mission for examination by the World Heritage Committee at its 37th session in 2013.
Are you agree with such formulation? South Africa is acceptable. Okay, so we, in paragraph 8, point C, we change by the 1st February 2013, and then this paragraph 10, how it was cited by our reporter. Agreed? So adopted. And now we have to adopt the whole decision. Ja Wildlife Reserve Cameroon, decision 36.7b.1 is adopted as amended. Thank you very much. So now we move on to the Lake Turkana National Park, Kenya. Please put on the screen the decision. As you remember, it was changes in the paragraph 12, 13, 14, and a new paragraph. Yes. So we straight go to the paragraph 12. Senegal, please, floor is yours. Remind us your rationale.
Bien. Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous avons bien réfléchi sur cette question et nous avons bien compris aussi les préoccupations des organisations consultatives. Simplement, cette question n'est pas que technique. C'est une question qui est politique, qui est humaine, qui est environnementale à la fois. Et c'est une question qui est dans la bilatéralité. C'est pourquoi nous pensons que le comité doit faire très attention. Nous ne devrons pas mettre de l'huile sur le feu. Aujourd'hui, nous devons donner aux deux États parties du Kenya et de l'Éthiopie la possibilité de se concerter, de discuter et d'essayer de trouver des solutions politiques à une situation qui peut être potentiellement grave. Pourquoi nous avons cette attitude? Parce que, après avoir discuté avec les États parties, notamment celui du Kenya, cela paraîtrait comme une double peine et ne ferait qu'envenimer la situation en termes de conciliation. Il faut tenir compte de ce qui se passe là-bas. Ce qui se passe là-bas, c'est que cette vallée de l'Omo et ce lac Turkana, presque berceau de notre humanité, était un continuum géographique. Bon, maintenant on a les frontières politiques, il y a des choses qui se passent de part et d'autre. Mais les populations qui vivent autour du lac Turkana et qui sont dépendantes des irrigations vont ressentir un certain nombre de contraintes. Donc donnons le temps au temps et la chance aux deux pays de pouvoir se concerter. C'est la raison pour laquelle nous ne souhaitons pas que ce site soit inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine en péril en raison de la charge négative associée à la notion d'inscription sur la liste en péril. Merci.
Thank you very much. Members of the committee, I ask you to be more brief because we have to move to a nomination. We are still pending even 2 sites to discuss under this item. Switzerland, please, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je partage entièrement le point de vue du Sénégal. Il faut donner du temps au temps, mais pas trop de temps au temps. Et dans ce sens-là, les propositions du Sénégal nous paraissent absolument justes. En revanche, la proposition de l'Afrique du Sud de remettre tout ça à 2014, je crois qu'on doit rester à 2013. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We support what has just been said by Switzerland, and I think that would be just very consistent with what we just decided on the case for JA in our decision before. So let's keep the date for 2013, and if needed, we might insert the word progress again if this is necessary.
Thank you very much. South Africa.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I think we need to be clear. We talk about 2 different cases here. JA was a straightforward case of a state party fixing things to report to this committee. If you read carefully, and we have discussed the earlier issues, conflicts in Africa, we're not exaggerating this thing, but we are cautioning the committee to understand that there are community issues here, there are livelihoods issues here, there are 2 state parties who are here committed to work together. Why do we rush them? Can't we give them enough time to deal with these issues? These things are costly, there are governance issues, officials need to meet, they need to convene meetings, they need to do an SEA, which is expensive. We don't have all the money in Africa to do these things speedily. Therefore, we are requesting more time. Hence, we still propose 2014. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, indeed, this case touched 2 countries, and I would say that, yes, why we can't give them more time for negotiation and really resolve the problem. India, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. India supports the position taken by South Africa and the elaboration of the complexity of the issues all across the world. Water issues are the most complex that you will deal with. Here you have a state party, which is being asked to take actions on their soil, on their territory, which we think that you need a process of consultation that has not actually begun. Yesterday I asked for a clarification from IUCN, which was unfortunately not given, on the depth of their research, particularly where they have spoken of the planned 4 and 5 dams, stage 4 and stage 5, which is still in the future in the realm of possibility, which is nowhere on the horizon. So you're taking actions on the basis of hypotheses which we didn't feel were complete, and certainly not complete because the state party concerned was not in the picture at all. So we would support South Africa, and we would say that please don't rush these complex issues. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Senegal, floor is yours.
Oui, merci Madame la Présidente. C'est juste pour aller dans ce sens-là, parce que Dja et cette question-là, c'est différent. Dja, c'est le Cameroun. Dans le Cameroun, c'est plus simple. Alors que là, nous avons deux pays. Et vraiment, je pense qu'il est souhaitable de leur donner le temps. Merci.
Thank you very much. Colombia, the floor is yours.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Nosotros igualmente apoyamos la propuesta de Senegal. Creemos que tenemos que darle la oportunidad al país de poder resolver este problema. Sin embargo, estamos de acuerdo con la propuesta, lo que dijo Suiza y Alemania, que si seguimos posponiendo, ¿hasta cuándo vamos a posponer esto? Creemos que tiene que ser hasta el 2013. Ya tuvimos aquí en la sala la propuesta de los dos países de trabajar juntos. Creemos que hay un compromiso de ambos y pensamos que en el 2013 tendría que ser la presentación del reporte. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Mali.
Oui, merci Madame la Présidente. C'est pour effectivement soutenir la proposition de l'Afrique du Sud. Il faut quand même laisser au moins 2 ans. Parce que s'engager à dire on va faire en une année, ce n'est pas réaliste. Il y a les experts de 2 pays qui doivent se rencontrer, produire des rapports, faire remonter au niveau politique. Et je crois que ça prend du temps. Donc il faut comprendre dans ce sens. Merci.
Germany.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous sommes tout à fait d'accord avec l'Afrique du Sud qu'on doit intensifier le dialogue. Nous sommes aussi très heureuses d'avoir entendu que les 2 parties sont prêts aux négociations bilatérales plus intenses. Mais nous avons aussi parlé de la question de la population locale. La population locale qui consiste des tribus, des gens, et qui est compris des oiseaux migratoires. Les gens qui vivent là ont besoin de cette eau. Alors comme ça, on doit voir le progressus. Ce n'est pas à dire qu'on va avoir une décision finale l'année prochaine. On va probablement le revoir l'année prochaine. Alors comme ça, ils auront le temps qu'ils ont besoin. Et nous avons les informations dont nous avons besoin pour faire une décision.
Thank you very much. Maybe it would be possible that we put here the same progress report of negotiation and implementation, the recommendation done by this committee. And I will give the floor to our rapporteur to propose the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. In view of having some sort of consensus among committee members, maybe you could consider the following. On paragraph 13, request furthermore the states parties of Ethiopia and Kenya to submit to the World Heritage Center by 1st February 2013 a progress report on the actions taken by on the negotiations between Ethiopia and Kenya, and a report on the implementation of the above-mentioned requested actions for consideration by the World Heritage Committee at its 37th session in 2013.
South Africa, Ethiopia, maybe I ask Kenya. Maybe such formulation will satisfy both parties.
Madam Chair, perhaps is the last point we are going to make as the South African delegation, and then we leave up to the committee to decide. I'm not saying, Madam Chair, we're doing cut and paste. From one decision of a simpler thing, we cut and paste the same decision to another complex thing. Again, we're cautioning here. We're not talking of a year. We talk of only 7 months, which means these countries must move out of this meeting, convene a meeting immediately, sort all of that, give us a progress. My word, Madam Chair, progress, there might be no progress. I don't know, it's a complex issue. Now, we always discuss too many sites here. Are we enjoying just discussing them and then there's no progress? If that's what you want, we'll agree that come next year, no progress, we just enjoy discussing Ethiopia and Kenya here. Hence, we are still insisting, Madam Chair, 2014, we can hear better progress. It will save the time of this committee. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, you can give the state parties a chance, perhaps to comment on this, but we're still of the view as South African delegation that more time must be given. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I personally agree with you, but I try to make some kind of consensus, approach. Maybe Ethiopia can say some words what they think about this resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's very difficult for us to produce something valuable within 6-7 months. So we have to be given time. That's our request. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I would like to give the floor to Algeria.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Moi, je voudrais me joindre aux voix qui ont été d'accord pour accorder un intermède jusqu'en 2014 qui permet aux deux États de répondre aux exigences du comité. Il faut prendre en considération le territoire qui est objet de discussion et les difficultés que connaissent les deux pays actuellement. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, France. Floor is yours.
France, moi je me ralliais plutôt à la proposition colombienne qui prend en compte à la fois la nécessité du dialogue et un certain impératif de temps. Alors je comprends bien que l'Éthiopie vient d'exprimer ses doutes quant à la capacité à donner des résultats tangibles en peu de temps, mais je pense quand même qu'il faut essayer d'avancer à la fois dans le sens du dialogue et à la fois dans le sens du résultat. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Switzerland.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Les propos de l'ambassadeur de France sont tout à fait justes et je pense qu'on peut soutenir la proposition de compromis qui a été habilement présentée par notre rapporteur. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can speak South Africa about information about the progress, not of full report, let's say.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are close to agree because in the spirit of time, but Madam Chair, this thing is not about the capacity of the states, as just alluded. It's not about capacity of officials. There might be political sensitivities here. They might move out of here, report to their political heads, report to the heads of state. Those decisions are not quick. These are bilateral cooperations which are guided by the strategies of these two countries on how they deal with their issues. This is not a simple issue, Madam Chair. We must not just simplify it as if it's an issue of talking and then creating buffers and changing boundaries. It's not about that. It's about resources. It's about water. It's about men. It's about communities. It's about livelihoods. It's about everything. Therefore, there has to be even political negotiations. Well, if we want to discuss them, February is fine, if we enjoy that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Maybe we speak here not about the big discussion. We speak about information. So what, if it will be agreed, I will propose that to submit to the World Heritage by 1st February 2013 and information on the negotiation between Ethiopia and Kenya and the progress report on the implementation of the above-mentioned requested actions. So I see no objections. So adopted, like this. And please move. So now we have to adopt paragraph. Please. Yes, please look. It was proposed by Senegal to delete this, paragraph, which it seems to me it was a consensus to delete it. So I see no objections. Approved. Then point previously 13, now it point 12. Proposal of Senegal, as I understand, we agree with this proposal. So if there are no objection, adopted. So now we have to adopt the whole decision. Lake Turkana National. 14, excuse me. Yes, we have 14. Decides to inscribe before the list of nations before. It seems to me that this paragraph now has no sense. No.
Never use it.
We never use even such, phraseology. Please, Germany.
I think South Africa would agree that in the course of the discussion we have reached a point where it should read, decides to review the issue in its next session.
Switzerland?
Oui, je crois que la proposition du Sénégal reflète un accord et je crois qu'elle a tout à fait sa place ici. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Mali.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je pense que, comme le collègue du Sénégal, ce paragraphe a sa place dans la mesure où toute la grande discussion qui a eu lieu hier, c'est au sujet de l'envoi d'une mission dans les différents États partis. Donc il faut maintenir ce paragraphe, c'est bon.
Okay, so if there is no objections, we keep this item, this paragraph as amended. Adopted. Thank you very much. Now we have to adopt the whole decision. Lake Turkana National Park, Kenya, 36.7b.3. If no objection, we adopt this decision. Adopted. Thank you very much. Now we move on to the Shiritoka, Japan, Asia Pacific. So now I invite World Heritage Center.
Ethiopia.
Yes, Ethiopia. Floor is yours.
I have a declaration to make. Ethiopia is obliged, for the record, to state the following. Ethiopia has proved itself to the World Heritage Center and the ideas of the Convention of UNESCO as a vanguard in protection of cultural and natural heritage. Ethiopia is appreciative of the committee's focus on the need for dialogue and transparency. Ethiopia is working very closely with UNESCO, the advisory bodies, and the Category 2 organizations. The issue of Gibe 3 is addressed in relation to Lake Turkana National Parks in Kenya and is on a status of 50% plus. Ethiopia has taken all necessary measures not to impact the outstanding universal value of the lake. All decisions taken are in accordance with agreements with the Kenyan government. The Gibe 3 dam is under construction and is 50% completed. It cannot be stopped now and would be punishing Ethiopia to do so. Ethiopia is engaged in transforming the lives of its people rather than waiting for handouts caused by repeated drought that we regret together with all member states. In doing so, we take note of our responsibility we share with Kenya. Ethiopia reiterates that it finds very difficult as it stands now to accept the draft decision, paragraph 7, and demands that it be reconsidered. I thank you.
Please, World Heritage Center, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is our understanding that this particular site, the Shiritoko in Japan, was requested to be discussed by a member of the committee. The Secretariat has no further information to provide.
IUCN, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can comment on the site, but as we don't know the points that are being raised, to have it opened, it may be more efficient to perhaps just give the word to the state party that's requested for the item to be opened, and then we can respond to the points that are raised if necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Now the discussion is open. Floor is yours. Please, who wants to take the floor? Malaysia, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The government of Malaysia would like to take this opportunity to express our opinion on the draft decision 36-7B.12 on the issue of management of salmonids and river constructions. First of all, we would like to draw your attention to the word removal of river construction mentioned in the WSC-12/6.com/7B and the draft decision 36-7B.12. At the 32nd session, which was held in Quebec City, 2008, the World Heritage Committee requested the state party to implement the recommendations of the joint World Heritage Center/IUCN reactive monitoring mission, including continued and accelerate measures to promote the free movement of salmon within the property and also to increase salmon escapement, giving priority attention to the modification of structures on the Russia River and monitor impacts on salmon population. We note with great interest that as a result of Japan's aggressive efforts through river construction modification and not removal, scientific assessment has shown increasing numbers of spawning beds and increase its distance upstream to about 3 kilometers. Thus, the modification has produced results required by the WSC/IUCN reactive monitoring mission of 2008. With your permission, Madam Chair, we would like to ask if the government of Japan has additional information that they wish to share with the committee in a later stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to state that world over river constructions, particularly the check dams, are done as a means to mitigate or reduce the high risk from sediment flows and soil erosion, so as to prevent serious damages to both life and property. Undoubtedly, such constructions also have some negative impacts on the environment, particularly on aquatic biodiversity and fish migration. Therefore, what we say is that a considered view needs to be taken how to harmonize socio-economic development concerns with the imperatives of conserving the environment, particularly the river health. We are pleased to note that the monitoring carried out by the Shiritoko site management has shown a positive increase in the level of salmonid spawning as a result of installation of fishways. However, it would be more appropriate to closely monitor the effects of such installations of fishways for a further period of at least 2 years to fully establish the efficacy of fishways before any decision to remove dams and their foundations on the river Russia can be taken. Thank you.
Colombia, please take the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Nosotros entendemos muy bien el problema de Japón. Nosotros tenemos un régimen de lluvias muy alto, tenemos esta situación en distintas regiones del país y entendemos la situación que están pasando y todos los esfuerzos que están haciendo para poder controlar de alguna manera los efectos de estos desastres naturales, y quisiéramos oír del Estado parte que nos explique cuáles son los procesos y las decisiones que están tomando. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Is there no any speakers? So I will give the floor to State Party. Cambodia, please take the floor. Floor is yours, sir.
Oui, merci Madame la Présidente. Je souscris à la déclaration de la Colombie et je tiens également à entendre l'État parti sur les progrès qui ont été réalisés. En tout cas, je dois féliciter l'État parti des efforts qui ont été employés pour la protection de cette zone. Merci.
Thank you very much. Japan, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. I would like to answer the question very briefly from Malaysia and Colombia. Sri Lanka is a region with high risk of sediment disasters. In the past, sediment disaster caused by heavy rainfalls resulted in serious damage, not only to human lives, houses, roads, but also to the fishery industry, which is one of the most important industries in Sri Lanka. For the purpose of prevention and mitigation of the sediment disaster to the local community, the role of river construction is indispensable. River construction is actually a small-sized dam, about 2 meters to 7 meters high, so tiny dams, which is excuse me, indispensable. And the removal of these dams is almost impossible because people live there. And I'd like to emphasize that about 100 these small dams had already existed at the time of inscription back in 2005. To prevent these, excuse me, to improve the situation, we conducted an assessment study on all aspects, including salmon movement, ecological impact, and disaster prevention function. After this comprehensive scientific study, and in consultation with IUCN and World Heritage Center, we started in 2006 a modification on these small dams to allow salmon to migrate upstream for spawning. I'd like to emphasize again at this point, this solution was a mutually agreed on solution with IUCN and World Heritage Center. And as a result of these efforts, scientific monitoring data show situation has clearly improved. For example, in the Lucia River, where we completed 2 passageways for fish, the percentage of number of spawning beds of pink salmon found upstream increased from 8% to 31%. After all, I'd like to say we are doing every effort to improve the situation and continue monitoring. And I'd like to say, please understand that removal of these small dams is not acceptable because the local people living there is so much affected by it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we move to the draft decision? Oh, France, you wants to take the floor, please.
Je viens d'écouter avec beaucoup d'intérêt ce que vient de dire l'ambassadeur du Japon, et la France veut féliciter l'État partie pour ses efforts et l'encourager à poursuivre sa coopération avec l'IUCN. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. You have in your books the draft decision proposed and some amendments we received. So I would like you, amendments from Malaysia, I would like to ask, yes, go straight to the amendments. Please, Rapporteur, take the floor.
Yes, Madam Chairperson. We have received amendments from Malaysia on paragraphs 5 and 6 of the decision. So you may want to proceed as we have done in the past and maybe adopt paragraphs 1 to 4.
Are any objection? Please put on the screen paragraph 1 to 4. So are any objection to this paragraph? No, adopted. So now we move to the paragraph 5. Please, reporter, read this paragraph.
The paragraph 5, as amended, is the following. Also requires the state party to continue monitoring the status of salmonid migration and spawning and consider further river construction modifications, including other appropriate measures as needed on the Rocha River in order to ensure natural salmonid migration and spawning.
Are anybody? Yes, Germany.
We are happy to support this amendment proposed by Malaysia, as we believe that the strategic approach based on proper monitoring and scientific assessment is the right approach to take. Thank you very much.
Mexico, please take the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. También México apoya esta formulación. Hemos escuchado con atención los esfuerzos que ha hecho el Estado parte, pero también esta formulación da cuenta de que la remoción completa de las presas era una petición que no era razonable en contraste con lo que ha venido haciendo el Estado parte. Esta formulación refleja el sentimiento de la delegación de México, entonces apoyamos. Gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much. I see the other countries wants to support, as I understand, the efforts of Japan, and we congratulate Japan with such, excellent approach. May I put the question other? Who are against this amendment? Because, dear colleagues, we have to save time. We have had very difficult, cases. So, are anybody against or object this paragraph as amended? None. So, adopted. Thank you very much. Now we go to para 6. So, further request the state party to submit to the World Heritage Center by 1st February 2015, a report on the state of conservation of the property, including a progress achieved in improving natural salmonid migration and spawning within the property and in addressing the conflict between fishers and Steller sea lion for examination by the World Heritage Committee in its 39th session in 2015. Are anybody? South Africa, please.
Madam Chair, we support this paragraph, and we appreciate the 2015 timeline. It's much applauded by South African delegation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. India, you wanted to tell something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would support it too. And also note that this is one of the first cases that we've seen of the World Heritage Center and IUCN being involved quite literally in upstream issues. We hope that will continue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to IUCN. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Briefly, just to respond to these two amendments and to note that we had spoken to Japan directly on some of these issues and had looked at changes which essentially focus on the results rather than the inputs to the need to deal with this issue of salmon migration, which was noted at the time of inscription and was also noted as an issue following the monitoring mission. So I just wanted to note for the record that the discussions we had with Japan seem to be conveyed through other states' parties, and that I think is a helpful note in terms of perhaps moving to consensus on this as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Cambodia.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le Cambodge appuie cette décision et je trouve que c'est dans la logique même du paragraphe 5 et du paragraphe 6. Et tout à fait d'accord également pour que l'examen se fasse à sa 39e session en 2015.
Thank you very much. So, may I consider that we'll all agree with this paragraph and we can adopt it? Nobody are against. So, adopted. Now we have to adopt the whole decision. 36.7b.12. If there are no objection, it is adopted as amended. Thank you very much. Now we move on to East Rennell, Solomon Island, 36.7b.15. Document WHC 12/36.com/7b. World Heritage Center, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The World Heritage Center and IUCN have been receiving reports of logging operation near the boundaries property, and more alarmingly, we learned that a hearing to consider an application for logging concessions within the property itself had been scheduled for April of this year. The Center sent a letter to the State Party requesting clarification on this issue. A response has not yet been received, though we understand through other channels that the hearing has been postponed. The decision for this property is located on page 46 in English version and 49 in your French version. Thank you. IUCN, Madam Chair, has a few extra comments to make.
Thank you very much. IUCN, take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. IUCN recalls at the time of the property's inscription that the absence from Rennell Island of alien invasive predators such as rats and land snails, which had decimated the fauna of many other Pacific islands, was noted. IUCN also recalls at the time of inscription questions arose about confining the property to only a small portion of the island, where the extent of forest is insufficient to ensure the long-term survival of the endemic bird population. And IUCN therefore considers that any disturbance to the forest ecosystem through logging would have severe impacts on the outstanding universal value of the property. And notes reports received that rats and African snail may have been introduced to the island already with the onset of logging operations. IUCN considers that the scale of commercial resource extraction on Rennell Island, particularly in the context of a small island ecosystem, is not sustainable and may have significant impacts on outstanding universal value. And we would wish to emphasise that if the application for a logging licence within the property was to be approved, it would constitute a clear basis for inscription of the property on the list of World Heritage in Danger. We'd also just like to note that it was an administrative matter that we had proposed text that is not reflected in the draft decision before you, which was to include the standard wording which often appears at the end of decisions where there is elevated threat, which is the phrase regarding with a view to consider the case of confirmation, in the case of confirmation of potential or ascertained danger to outstanding universal value, the inscription of the property on the list of World Heritage in Danger. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Floor is open. So is anybody who wants to take the floor? I see nobody, so we move straight to the draft decision. Switzerland, please take the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Au vu de la présentation de l'IUCN, nous considérons la proposition faite pour la proposition sur l'inscription de la liste du patrimoine en danger. Merci.
Thank you very much. Colombia, floor is yours.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Como se les está proponiendo al Estado parte una misión reactiva de monitoreo, que quisiera saber, oír del Estado parte si esto se va a proponer o cuándo se podría hacer. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Germany, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to support what Switzerland has just said to include the wording proposed by IUCN into the last paragraph. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have here State Party who wants to answer? Yes, Solomon Island. There is no representative of Solomon Island. So now I propose to move straight to the draft decision, and we first look to the paragraph 8, which have been amended by IUCN. So are there any objection to this paragraph, to this amendment? I see none, so adopted. And now we have to adopt the whole decision. 36.7b.15. I see no objection. It is adopted. Dear colleagues, before we move on to the item 8A. Yes, Germany, please take the floor.
Sorry, Madam, I don't want to take the rare time of the committee, but I learned that, and we know that we have a lot of NGOs in the room, and I learned that they would like to make a statement at the end of this when the point 7b is closed. So we might wish to give them the floor, but I leave this to the consideration of this committee. But when we have closed our item,
thank you very much. So before I give the floor to the NGO which are present here, but I would like in advance to say that they have 2 minutes and it will be strictly interrupted, so that we have to adopt the list of properties which didn't require any discussion. So first of all, on Africa, because I forgot, unfortunately, to do this before we went to discussion on African sites. So I cite Thai National Park, Côte d'Ivoire, Rwenzori Mountain National Park, Uganda, 36.7b.4, Serengeti National Park, United Republic of Tanzania, 36.7b.6, Mozi Oatunua, Victoria Falls, Zambia, Zimbabwe, 36.7b.7. If there are no objection, the decisions are adopted. And now we have to adopt, without discussion, the decisions on Asia and Pacific region. So I will read. 3 parallel rivers of Yunnan Protected Area, China, 36.7b.9. Manas Wildlife Sanctuary, India, 36.7b.10. Keoladeo National Park, India, 36.7b.11. Phoenix Island Protected Area, Kiribati, 36.7b.13. Sagarmatha National Park, Nepal, 36.7b.14. Central Highland of Sri Lanka, 36.7b.16. Dong Phayayan Hao Yai Forest Complex, Thailand, 36.7b.17. If there are no objection, all these resolutions we consider adopted. Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to the NGOs. and you have to introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Andrei Petrov. I am representative of Greenpeace Russia. Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving the environmental and conservation NGOs that are presented at this meeting the opportunity to make a statement. This statement is from the following NGOs: Greenpeace, WWF, and Wildlife Conservation Society. We wish to share some observations on the committee's discussions we have listened to the past days. We value the World Heritage Convention as a potentially powerful instrument for the protection and preservation of the world's most important natural and cultural places. The Convention is not a legally binding instrument. It is therefore only as powerful as the signatories want it to be. Three key words are important here: credibility, transparency, and integrity. We urge the World Heritage Committee to encourage the state parties to view their natural properties in terms of thousands of years and the thousands of human generations for whom these places have existed, rather than merely considering the limited scope of our own lifetimes. The outstanding universal value of the properties rests in part of their integrity. Humanity has 90% of the planet for its development, agricultural and industrial activities. We need to be the careful stewards of the remaining 10% in order to safeguard the myriads of other organisms that share our planet, many of which require intact ecosystems. We as NGOs are committed to contributing to the credibility, transparency, and integrity of World Heritage. And we have been invited by state parties presented here to assist in this. But we cannot do this alone, and we certainly cannot and will not do so if the Convention itself does not take a strong stand or becomes weakened. For example, the current incompatibility of mineral and oil operations within World Heritage status appears to be at risk. Open, honest debate about World Heritage status risks being overshadowed by issues of sovereignty and short-term economically unsustainable practices. We therefore urge the World Heritage Committee and the state parties to take a firm position and act bravely on the overriding need to protect these relatively few but enormously precious sites. They are irreplaceable. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you very much. So now we move on to the item 8A. At the issue of tentative lists and to the draft decision of 36.8A. I invite Mr. Balsamo from the World Heritage Center to briefly present the main issues of document WHC 12/36.com/8A. Mr. Balsamo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Document 36.8A presents the tentative list of all state parties submitted in conformity with the operational guidelines as of 15 April 2012. In particular, Annex 3 presents a list of all properties submitted on the tentative list received from state parties in alphabetical order. Annex 2 of Document 8A presents all the new tentative list or addition to existing tentative lists which have been submitted by state parties since the last session of the World Heritage Committee. As of 15 April 2012, of the 189 state parties which had ratified the convention at that time, 161, which is the 90% of the state parties, had submitted valid tentative lists in accordance with the requirements specified in the operational guidelines, and 19 state parties had not submitted any tentative list. All nominations submitted for examination in 2012 in document 8B are included on the tentative list of the state parties concerned. Since the preparation of document 8A for the 35th session of the committee in 2011, 29 state parties have submitted new tentative lists or modified existing lists. The number of new properties added to the existing tentative list is 103, which brings the total of sites currently on the tentative list to 1,569. Decision 36,8A is on page 3 of both the English and the French version of the document. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much for your explanation. And I would like to invite state parties to express their comments concerning this document. And we go to adoption of the decision 36,8A. Colombia, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Nosotros tenemos una petición a la Secretaría acerca de la lista tentativa de Colombia. ¿La hacemos ahora o en qué momento hacemos el comentario? Le quisiera preguntar a la Secretaría. Gracias.
Oh, you have to make the comment now.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Queríamos comentar que en Colombia hicimos un trabajo bastante riguroso para actualizar nuestra lista tentativa. Fue formalmente presentada ante el Centro de Patrimonio Mundial a través de nuestra representante permanente, la embajadora Sonia Sarmiento, en el mes de diciembre del año pasado. Sin embargo, no aparece en este listado y la información no está actualizada respecto a los bienes de Colombia. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I give the floor to Mr. Rao. Oh, Secretariat, please comment this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, this tentative list was only received in Spanish, which is not a language of the Convention. That is why it was not inserted in the new tentative list. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Colombia, please take the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. No quiero empezar un diálogo, después lo hablaremos con la Secretaría, pero queremos que quede registrado que la presentación se hizo en inglés con todos los requerimientos que había. Nosotros la volvimos a enviar hace más o menos un mes y medio cuando nos dimos cuenta que no había sido incluida en inglés con toda la información. Entonces lo hablaremos después, pero quiero que quede esto en acta. Gracias.
Please, Secretariat, if you have to answer.
I think we will see this with Colombia if there's a problem, but I think that the submission in December was in Spanish, and maybe if the following submission, it was too late to appear in the document, but we will certainly see this with Colombia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who else wants to take the floor? Japan, please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. and Madam Chairperson. We'd like to have the clarification explanation from the Secretariat that the draft decision says the number 2, talking about the regional harmonization with the World Heritage List. We'd like to hear more about how to do the regional harmonization. What is the Secretariat means under this wording? Just for clarification.
Thank you very much. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regional harmonization is something that actually appears in the operational guidelines in paragraph 73. It's something that we wish it would happen, but certainly as any other basically expert meeting requires probably proposal from state parties to host the meeting. So it's a question also of organization and funding of this kind of meetings. But certainly regional harmonization is something that will enhance also the whole discussion about upstream processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We participated in the upstream processes of harmonization. And at this moment, we understand that it does not mean to pre-evaluate of the tentative list and others. I understand. But anyway, this is upstream processes.
Thank you very much. It's a big desire to harmonize this list. Okay, so maybe somebody else wants to take the floor. If not, we straight go to the draft decision. I see no other speakers, so please put on the screen the draft decision. So it's very short, it's without any amendments. So are you agree with this decision? I see no objections, so may we consider that we adopt this decision, decision 36-8A. Adopted. Thank you very much. Now respire a little bit and we move on. So we now move on to the item 8B. Very interesting, very difficult. And so I would like to remind you about the working document concerning the nominations. They are WHC 12/36.com/8B and WHC 12/36.com/8B.add. The evaluations of the advisory bodies are to be found in the information document W12/36.com/inf.8B1 1236.com/inf.8B1 add and B1 add 2. And for the ICOMOS, it was for ICOMOS evaluation, and for IUCN evaluation, it's document WHC 12/36.com/inf.8B2. Let me recall the document WHC 12/36.com/inf.8B3 presents the list of all the nominations received by 1st February 2012 with the indication of those which were deemed as complete. These nominations are not going to be discussed during our debates here, since they are foreseen to be examined at the next session of our committee. And these nominations are in document WHC 12/36.com/inf.8B3. Its list of nominations received by 1st February 2012 and for examination by the committee and its 37th session. I would also like to inform the committee that I received as chairperson a letter dated 22nd May 2012 from 70 indigenous people organizations and NGOs from around the world on the lack of implementation of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples in the context of the World Heritage Convention. They delivered a statement at the UN Permanent Forum of Indigenous Issues on 15 May 2012 and referred to the inadequacy of the World Heritage Committee's procedures, to the lack of transparency in nomination processes, and especially mentioned the inscription of Lake Bogoria National Reserves in 2011 and the nominations of Western Ghats and Trinational of the Sangha. I replied to the Executive Director of the International Working Group on Indigenous Affairs on 25th May 2012 to acknowledge the submission and to advise her that I shall inform the committee. Furthermore, I wish to point out that IWGIA has been admitted as an observer to this session under Rule 8 of the Rules of Procedure. As you know, UNESCO has a long-standing cooperation with the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues and is closely following this matter. As you have seen, the World Heritage Center has made a special issue of the World Heritage Review on the topic of indigenous people. It's number 62, 2012, which provides you with more information on this important matter. Now you have in front of you document 8B, and I would like to ask Mr. Alessandro Balsamo from the World Heritage Center to briefly present the first section of this document on the assessment of advantages and disadvantages of merging referral and deferral of nominations into a single mechanism. So please, Mr. Balsamo, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At its 35th section in UNESCO 2011, the World Heritage Committee requested the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies to assess the advantages and disadvantages of merging the referral and deferral options for consideration of a nomination into a single mechanism, and give consideration to elaborating a proposal for draft amendments to paragraph 159 and 160 of the operational guidelines in this regard. As a result, the Secretariat, along with ICOMOS and IUCN, analyzed the pros and cons of such proposal and produced the paper that forms Section 1 of Document 8B. The conclusions of this analysis is that the merging of referral and deferral will not benefit state parties, but on the contrary, it will deprive them of options that are more appropriate to their case. Referral and deferral are both useful, but different processes to support the nominations submitted by state parties. Both the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies consider that further reflection on this issue could be helpful in the context of the evolving discussion on the upstream process, and that for the time being, no change to the operational guideline is suitable. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, we move to the changes of the names of properties inscribed in the World Heritage List. So, Mr. Balsamo, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For this session of the committee, we received 5 requests for changes to names of properties already inscribed on the World Heritage List. And if there are no objections, in order to save time, I will present them all together, and the committee will deal with the adoption of the related draft decision at the end. Please note that actually the proposed name change for Manas Wildlife Sanctuary India, it was dealt in the context of the, another draft decision, but we will come at that in a while when we will talk about withdrawals. The first request comes from the Argentine authorities and deal with Los Glaciares, inscribed on the World Heritage List in 1981. The committee is asked to approve the proposed name change, which becomes Los Glaciares National Park in English and Parc National de los Glaciares in French. The second request is from the Irish authorities and is about Skellig Michael, inscribed on the World Heritage List in 1996. The committee is asked to approve the proposed name change, which becomes, and I'm sorry here for the pronunciation, Skellig Michael, maybe, in both English and French. Another request for a name change comes from the American authorities and deals with the Pueblo de Taos property, inscribed in 1992. The committee is asked to approve the proposed name change, which becomes Taos Pueblo in English as well as in French. The last request for a name change we are treating here comes from the Uzbek authorities and deals with the Samarkand Crossroads of Cultures, inscribed on the World Heritage List in 2001. And this request actually only concerned the English version of the name of the property. And the committee is asked to approve the proposed name change, which becomes Samarkand-Crossroad of Cultures. The four related draft decisions, 36-8B1, 2, 3, and 4, are on page 2 and 3 of the English version of the document 8B and on page 3 of its French version. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So, as I was consulted by Secretariat, we can adopt all these decisions all together, not one by one. So, if you have no objections, we can adopt the decision concerning the changes of name inscribed in the World Heritage List. I have no objection, so adopted. So now let's move to our next point of this agenda, item B, which deals with withdrawals of nominations to be examined by the session of the committee. I invite Mr. Balsamo to read out the list of the nominations withdrawn at the request of the state party.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A total of 6 nominations were withdrawn prior to this committee session. One of these nominations was withdrawn prior to the publication of document 8B, United Republic of Tanzania, Eastern Arc Mountains Forest. And the following 5 nominations are being withdrawn after the publication of 8B. And these are United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Twin Monastery of Wearmouth and Jarrow. Mexico, Banco Chinchorro Biosphere Reserve. Spain, Plasencia, Monfragüe, Trujillo Mediterranean Landscape. The former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Archaeoastronomical Site Kokino. And France, the Chauvet-Pont d'Arc Decorated Cave. Following these 6 withdrawals, the committee will have to examine 33 nominations. Among them, 5 are for natural sites, 2 for mixed sites, and 26 for cultural sites. And let me take this opportunity to remind that the complete PDF version of all the nominations, which will be examined at this session, have been installed on computers and could be consulted here just outside of the main room. In addition, please note that 7 proposed minor boundary modifications presented in document 8B have also been withdrawn at the request of the state party. The 7 minor boundary modifications withdrawn are all from India. It's a group of monuments at Mahalibapuram, Khajuraho group of monuments, Sun Temple, Konarak, Agra Fort, Fatehpur Sikri, Buddhist monuments at Sanchi, and the Chhatrapati Shivai Terminus, formerly Victoria Terminus. The Secretariat wishes to inform the committee that under the sub-item 8B add minor boundary modification, the minor boundary modification of Manas Wildlife Reserve was included by mistake. In fact, we have learned that this proposal is under the process of obtaining administrative approval of the government, after which it will be submitted by the state party. Therefore, we would like to inform the committee that the Secretariat withdraws this part and its related draft decision, and we apologize for this situation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes, please.
Thank
India.
you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question, I have a comment. India had 7 nominations, 7 boundary modifications withdrawn, and we found to our surprise that we were listed as a boundary modification for Manas, which you would recall was taken off the list of danger last year. My concern is not with the fact that there is consideration of such a boundary modification. My concern is that the Secretariat, the IUCN, the World Heritage Center, all went through the document, all went through everything, and thought the state party had proposed a nomination or a boundary modification, which the state party had not. And we are now in this unfortunate position of having used up a lot of paper, a lot of time, a lot of energy. I say this, Madam Chair, and I note the apology offered by the Secretariat, because I think it is incumbent on us to maintain the highest standards. We are, on the basis of recommendations of the advisory bodies and the inputs of the World Heritage Center, telling state parties, putting their lists on danger, putting their sites in danger, taking decisions. And we hope and we trust that this is done with the highest standards of professionalism. And obviously it has not been done. So I emphasize this only to say that even these are followable. And we would need to, Madam Chair, you've been kind enough to speak and talk of a working group to go into the whole issue of the functioning of the bodies and their interrelationships and the role. And we would expect the highest professional standards. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. As I understand, Mr. Rao would like to make some comments on this matter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have noted the observation of the distinguished delegate of India. We have taken note of that, and we would like to assure the committee that we function to the highest standards of professional integrity and professionalism. But at the end of the day, we want to provide the committee with the best information in order for it to base its judgments on. But finally, we are also human and we are fallible, we make mistakes. In this particular case, the state party had submitted a draft proposal, which they were still working on, together with a map, and we sort of mistook it as a proposal and it was evaluated. We accept that mistake and we have withdrawn it. And we hope that in future these things will not happen. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I see that India doesn't agree with this, so
Madam,
the last word.
Absolutely the last word. And I was hoping that I would not have to say this, but we did not submit a draft proposal. It was in a state of conservation report. It is only information. So may I correct the impression that India submitted a proposal, draft or otherwise? And this is precisely what I'm trying to say, that you cannot extrapolate from information that is provided. So I would just like to correct the director of the World Heritage Center.
Thank you very much. But
no, it's not a dialogue, just a correction.
Okay, correction.
Just to sort of provide the correct information again, it was not a draft proposal, I understand, but all state parties provide in the state of conservation report, as a follow-up to the decisions of the committee, proposals for boundary changes. In this case also, there was a draft which was annexed to the state of conservation report. This is how state parties submit, and this was mistaken as the final report. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So, as we begin with some other comments, I hope not, and we go now, move on. As we begin with the item of nomination, I would like to take this occasion to recall two essential procedures concerning nominations to be examined. Firstly, as you may recall, the committee is required to examine the recommendations and draft decisions presented in the relevant documents and, in accordance with the paragraph 153 of the operational guidelines, take its decision following four categories: inscription, decision not to inscribe, referral, and deferral. The committee may decide to inscribe a property on the World Heritage List, paragraph 154 of the operational guidelines. The committee may decide that a property should not be inscribed. It's paragraph 158 of the operational guidelines. The committee may decide to refer back to the state party for additional information, paragraph 159 of the operational guidelines. The committee may decide to defer a nomination for more in-depth assessment or a study or a substantial revision by the state party. So, paragraph 160 of the operational guidelines. In particular, nomination which the committee decides to refer back to the state party for additional information may be resubmitted to the following committee session for examination. For a nomination that is referred, there is no new nomination prepared and there is no evaluation mission of the relevant advisory bodies foreseen to the property. If the committee decides to defer a nomination, it means that an in-depth assessment or study or a substantial revision of the nomination file by the state party is needed. Therefore, a new nomination should be submitted by 1st February and be reevaluated by the relevant advisory bodies during the course of the full year and a half evaluation cycle, according to the procedures and timetable outlined in paragraph 168 of the operational guidelines. Secondly, on the specific issues of submission of the additional information on nominations, I would like to recall point H of paragraph 148, as well as the nomination timetable of paragraph 168 of the operational guidelines, which establishes the deadline for submission of additional information on nominations, and this point says, I quote, "The evaluations and presentation of the advisory bodies should not take into account or include any information submitted by the state party after 28 February in the year in which the nomination is considered." We can now proceed with the examination of nominations. We will begin with the nomination to be proceed on an emergency basis, that we will continue with the mixed nominations, followed by cultural and then natural nominations. So, before we move on to concrete nominations, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that we have received this year a number of letters from state parties notifying factual errors they have found in the evaluation of their nominations. In this respect, I would like to remind the committee that only those letters which have been considered as containing factual errors, translated and distributed under the official cover page for working documents, may be the object of discussion and examination. I would like to ask Mr. Balsamo to briefly present this point and read out the list of such letters. Mr. Bazar, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A number of letters detailing factual errors are being received by this year's deadline, which was fixed in compliance with paragraph 150 of the operational guidelines on 11 June, 6 p.m. Paris time. However, some of these letters contained additional information or advocacy, while a part of them also contained notification of factual errors. Following the analysis done by the advisory bodies and the World Heritage Center, only the parts of the letters dealing with factual errors have been translated and compiled into one document, available in the 2 working languages and distributed to you. The document contains factual errors letter concerning the following nomination evaluations: Canada, landscape of Grand Pré; Côte d'Ivoire, historic town of Grand Bassin; Croatia, sacral complex on the remains of the Roman Forum in Zadar; India, hill forts of Rajasthan; Portugal, garrison border town of Elbas and its fortifications; and Qatar, Al-Zubarah archaeological site. The advisory bodies will address the identified factual errors during the presentation of each related nomination. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Somebody have some questions? Yes, please, Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the presentation of the accepted letters of factual errors. I'd like to bring to the attention of the committee and to my distinguished colleagues an issue which came up in the working group on the revision of the operational guidelines this morning. It was expressed that we are not very happy with the current situation concerning letters of factual errors. We need more information and transparency on the decision-making of this issue. Who is involved, single experts or the board of experts, who is the person who is doing which evaluation. We like and we hope for more clarification on those issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Advisory body, World Heritage Center, who will clarify the situation with these factual errors letters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I think this is a good idea. In any case, when the operational guidelines could be more detailed to explain every provision, it's a useful thing for the committee. Just to remind the current process is that basically the letters are reviewed by first the advisory bodies that produce the evaluations, since these factual errors are indicating errors in these evaluations, and then reviewed by the World Heritage Center to also look at the same letters, and the result of these two analyses is then what is presented in the document. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It seems to me that we can more detailed discussion organized when we will discuss the, the operational guidelines and clarify this item, because it seems to me that this answer didn't satisfy, Germany and maybe the other countries. Thank you very much. So before we go to the first nomination, I'm going to call on IUCN and ICOMOS to be very concise in their presentations, as you will be allocated only 5 to 8 minutes to present each nomination depending on its category. I thank you in advance for your cooperation. Before we start the presentation concerning nominations to be examined, I give the floor to ICOMOS for a brief presentation of their evaluation process. So, ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could we have the first slide? The ICOMOS valuation documents are before you in INF8B, INF8B-AD, and INF8B-AD2. Members of the committee are also invited to consult the information paper on REFER and DEFER, which has already been mentioned, which explains how the ABs, the advisory bodies, treat the distinctions between the options to recommend REFER and DEFER, and underpins the logic of the recommendations in many evaluations presented by ICOMOS and also IUCN to this session. And the recent document 36-8B on the assessment of the advantages and disadvantages of merging referral and deferral into a single mechanism are also relevant. The evaluation process is given in Annex 6 of the operational guidelines. The ICOMOS evaluation is designed to ensure that a rigorous and institutional evaluation occurs. This process is illustrated on the slide. This process is accompanied by policy to avoid perceptions of conflicts of interest. And this policy is available on the ICOMOS website. Next slide, please. Through the evaluation process, a number of individual experts from ICOMOS and the ICOMOS International Scientific Committees are engaged in the task of reviewing all aspects of the nomination in line with the regulations set forth in the operational guidelines. An average of 40 people can be involved in the evaluation of one nomination file before finalizing the recommendation of ICOMOS. The ICOMOS mission expert is the most visible part of this process. However, we would like to stress that he has no decision-making power and only looks at one aspect of the evaluation. ICOMOS takes a professional view of the dossiers reviewed and, when appropriate, makes recommendations for all the properties for which nominations have been submitted to it, independently of the outstanding regional or universal scope of the values. Next slide, please. This slide shows the workload of ICOMOS in the evaluation of nominations for consideration by this session of the World Heritage Committee. And as you see, we'll be reviewing altogether 53 nominations if you include 20 minor modifications as well. Next slide, please. ICOMOS is concerned to maintain a dialogue with state parties throughout the evaluation process to the greatest extent possible within the provisions of the operational guidelines. The ICOMOS panel meeting was held in November 2011 at that precise date, so that letters requesting additional information could be sent out to state parties sufficiently in advance to allow them adequate time to reply. The quality of the replies provided by the states parties in most cases has greatly assisted ICOMOS in finalizing the evaluations to propose helpful additional recommendations. Although I would like to stress that we do not send letters to all state parties for all nominations. Next slide, please. In order to reinforce consistency of the evaluations and recommendations and to check which additional information requests should be sent to state parties, ICOMOS uses a checkbox tool, and this is based on the requirement for nominations set out in the operational guidelines. And this diagram, which you see on the screen, is included in our volume of evaluations. Next slide, please. The information paper from the advisory bodies provides information specifically on advisory body recommendations for referral and deferral. And these distinctions have already been summarized by the chair this morning. And we would like to stress that in making our recommendations, we do fall back on those, the way these mechanisms are defined. We see referral as being an extremely useful process for some nominations, but in other cases we see deferral as being the preferred option where more fundamental work is done, and perhaps there is an opportunity for ICOMOS to help upstream in undertaking that work. Next slide, please. This year, ICOMOS has evaluated 15 serial nominations, which together include some 179 monument sites and groups of buildings. ICOMOS has tried to make explicit for the committee the questions it asks in relation to the nature of serial nominations. For instance, what is the justification for the serial approach? How were the chosen sites selected? And how do they each relate to the overall outstanding universal of the property that is being put forward? How does the comparative analysis justify the selection of sites? Are the separate components of the property linked? And is there an overall management framework for all components? ICOMOS notes that the evaluation of such properties involves a high investment of human and financial resources, while at the same time offering welcome innovation and diversity to the implementation of the Convention. Due to the challenges for state parties to put forward a well-justified selection in serial nominations, this is one area where the advisory bodies have identified new opportunities for upstream work. ICOMOS wishes to point out that the operational guidelines of November 2011, in paragraph 137, validated a change to the approach to serial properties. Serial nomination should not consist merely of a catalogue of sites, but should instead concern a collection or ensemble of sites with specific cultural, social, or functional links over time, in which each site contributes substantially to the outstanding universal value of the serial property as a whole. Next slide, please. ICOMOS, at the request of the World Heritage Committee, has participated in the drawing up of feasibility studies for 10 pilot projects selected in conjunction with the World Heritage Centre, and this has contributed to the advancement of the project's implementation. Some draft nominations received by the Centre on the 30th of September have also been reviewed by ICOMOS, which has which meant we have been able to provide comments on those draft dossiers. ICOMOS is prepared to make its expertise available for the development of nominations within the upstream process, as far as this is possible with the resources that we have available. Next slide, please. In its evaluation process, ICOMOS maintains scientific rigor and independence. We respect the role of the committee to take a decision. As always, the first mission of ICOMOS is for the conservation of the world's cultural heritage and to be of assistance to the committee and all state parties in their long-term care and commitment to that heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, ICOMOS. India, please take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank ICOMOS for their presentation. I would have been happier if the presentation would have been circulated to us in advance. The blur of slides is very difficult to retain, but I have a couple of specific questions. When I went through the process slides, what was missing in the process was the state party. The process went through, well, up to 40 or 50, as it was told to us, people reviewing it, talking about it, discussing it. And somewhere in all of this, there was no dialogue with the state party. There was no mention of an effort to reach out to the state party, correct minor errors, correct perceptions. So my question is, do the operation guidelines preclude this? Does this have to be done in this manner of secrecy and so on? Because this is important for us in this day and age where UNESCO is committed to transparency, to an open process. This is being webcast, so do the same specifications not apply to the advisory bodies? Secondly, it is a bit of an inverted pyramid. You begin with a single member evaluation, and in some way the pyramid broadens out. So there could be a mistake, particularly at the beginning. My specific question is, have you blacklisted anybody? Have these evaluations fallen short in this year, in other years? There are other issues, and I'm sure we'll come to them. But basically, what is it that prevents ICOMOS from a dialogue? What is it that prevents them from involving the states parties in the process and springing the surprise in this 6 weeks before the committee? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mexico, floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Seremos breves. Queremos incorporar también nuestra opinión, como la ha hecho el distinguido delegado de la India, y queremos volver a manifestar, lo hicimos en la 34ª sesión en Brasilia, nuestra inquietud con el órgano asesor en cuanto a las divergencias que hay en el proceso de evaluación de los sitios nominados. Pueden llegar a haber evaluaciones positivas y finalmente el panel final del ICOMOS revierte las recomendaciones de los evaluadores. Estos procesos son los que nosotros queremos que sean más transparentes y en ese afán, como lo mencionaba la delegación de Alemania, al igual que en las cartas mencionar a los expertos que están respondiendo a esta evaluación, quisiéramos nosotros tener en ese afán de transparencia y de un mayor diálogo con los órganos asesores, también saber quiénes están evaluando por parte del panel las nominaciones. Muchas gracias.
Aló. Colombia, please.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Queremos respaldar la moción de México. Esto es una discusión que hemos estado teniendo desde que empezó hace 4 días este comité. Nosotros encontramos que efectivamente hay fallas o nos hacen falta decisiones en el proceso, que queremos conversarlo con los órganos consultivos. Para esto se creó este grupo de trabajo en el punto 5B, que lo traeremos otra vez a colación en el punto 12, pero queremos que quede clara la posición de Colombia. Nosotros hemos tenido experiencia donde nos han presentado ha dado la imagen de tener una decisión, pero después esto ha cambiado cuando hemos recibido los drafts y quisiéramos poder tener una conversación con los órganos consultivos. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Qatar, floor is yours.
شكرا سيدتي الرئيسة. نريد فقط أن نثني على ما جاء على كلام سفير الهند وكولومبيا وكذلك المكسيك، بأن نشكر الأيكوموس على جهودها، ولكننا نطلب المزيد من الحوار والنقاش والشفافية وإشراك الدول في اتخاذ القرار وإيضاح الأمور لها والمعطيات لكي تستطيع أن ترد على ما هو مطلوب. يعني لا يجب أن يكون هناك فجوة وتفاجأ الدول بتوصيات ربما تكون مجحفة وظالمة في حقها. شكرا.
And Germany, floor is yours.
Yes, I think we are talking here mainly about basic standards. For example, there were 13 delegations that learned only yesterday that their factual error letters, which they have done with the best to their abilities and with the best of their scientific knowledge and to the best of their experts' wording, were not accepted. This is, I think, a slap in the face of member states. I don't say we shall accept all, but I think all countries who make such corrections have a right to early on know whether they were accepted or not, and not learn it while the committee is already in session, because that deprives them to check whether they were correctly corrected or incorrectly corrected, or whether there were misunderstandings or anything else. Secondly, we should have joint standards, I think, to say, for example, that a national of the same country of this site should not participate in this process. He or she may be biased in one way or the other. That should be a rule, that doesn't happen. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. United Arab Emirates, floor is yours.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. وأنا أعتقد بأن هذا النقاش على درجة من الأهمية، ونحن ندرك أهمية الوقت بالنسبة لأعمالنا، لكن كما تفضلت الوفود السابقة بالحديث، نحن تطرقنا لهذا الموضوع في بداية أعمال هذه اللجنة. أنا عبرت حينها عن أن هذه المسألة تقودنا إلى تصحيح العلاقة أو الفهم السائد في مفهوم الشراكة بين الهيئات الاستشارية والدول الأطراف في مهمتنا المشتركة، وهي في النهاية الحفاظ وصون التراث الثقافي لدولنا ولمجتمعاتنا. لذلك عبرت أن مفهوم الهيئات الاستشارية هو صفة جميلة لهذه الهيئات يجعلها في إطار النصح للدول الأطراف، فلو تمت كثير من المشاورات في إطار الوقت المتاح لهذه الهيئات، لأننا ندرك الأعباء الملقاة على عاتقها، يمكن لكثير من بعض الترشيحات أن لا تستمر إلى نهاية المطاف وأن لا تعرض على هذه اللجنة. يمكن لهذه الدول أن تدرك عبر الاستشارة المناسبة من الهيئات الاستشارية أثناء إعداد الترشيح أن هذا الملف قد لا يصلح، أن هذا الترشيح غير ممكن، فتقتنع الدولة، لأن أسلوب التعامل والشفافية فيه يمكن من التعامل بدون خوف وبدون سرية ويمنح الهيئات الاستشارية فرصة أكبر لتوفير عملها في المستقبل، بدلا من أن تستلم ترشيحات وبالتالي تصرف وقت عليها ونكتشف أن هذه الترشيحات. فأنا أعتقد أن الحوار المسبق أو النصيحة المسبقة في ظل مبدأ الشراكة، أننا نعمل جميعا، ليس هناك من يمتحن الآخر أو من يوجه الآخر بطريقة لا تتم عبر الثقة. هذا العلاقة ستصحح كثير من أمورنا، تساعد الدول، تساعد الهيئات الاستشارية، وتخدم قضية الحفاظ على تراثنا الثقافي. يعني شكرا.
Thank you very much. Malaysia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Malaysia would like to support the views mentioned, stated by India, Colombia, Mexico, and UAE. We feel the same way that this is a good opportunity that we have established to discuss the advisory bodies. A committee is to be set up, and we think that this is very necessary because, as mentioned by United Emirates, this is not an examination. This should be more transparent, and we should be able to have an even evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. France, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame le Président. On a entendu plusieurs mots, et notamment ces deux mots de transparence et de dialogue. Je dirais transparence, peut-être. Dialogue, certainement. Mais je crois que pour faire exister ce dialogue, il y a une question de méthode. Nous respectons énormément, bien sûr, le travail des organisations consultatives. Elles sont une des richesses de la Convention. Mais pour permettre de pouvoir dialoguer avec elles, il y a une question de calendrier. Et je pense que beaucoup d'évaluations arrivent trop tard par rapport au comité. Et que si ce calendrier était aménagé d'une autre façon, le dialogue serait plus facile et sans doute moins crispé. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Japan, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is clear that the dialogue or information exchange between the advisory bodies and the state party, not only for the evaluation, but also state of conservation reporting processes. And it was taken up during the meeting on the pristine processes and during the Thailand meeting held in Phuket in Thailand. And I think that the advisory bodies are aware of that importance. And the next issue is when we start, when it's the process it starts, and how to do it, able to do it, that's most important. And the first stage during the tentative list issues, and the second is while the state parties are preparing the nomination dossiers. And this is definitely, we'd like to participate in how to do it. That's the most important thing, is how effective to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Serbia. Floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Bon, la Serbie est nouveau membre du comité, mais la Serbie a une longue histoire de coopération. Nous respectons beaucoup vraiment les organisations consultatives et c'est à cause de ça que je prends la parole pour dire que nous sommes tout à fait d'accord avec des collègues qui ont pris la parole avant nous, ça veut dire l'Inde, Mexique et les autres. Nous croyons bien qu'en ayant aussi une longue et riche histoire de coopération avec les organisations consultatives, c'est nécessaire de souligner de nouveau la nécessité de la transparence et du dialogue, une très proche coopération, surtout avec les États parties. Merci bien.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Switzerland, floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Nous avons eu un aperçu de ce fructueux dialogue lorsque nous avons discuté du point 5P et que vous nous avez demandé effectivement d'établir aussi un groupe consultatif justement pour voir comment est-ce qu'on peut tenir compte des soucis, je dirais, de l'unanimité du groupe quant aux problèmes de dialogue, de transparence, de consultation en amont du processus, par exemple, comme le délégué des Émirats arabes unis l'a dit. J'aimerais dire deux choses, simplement. Me faire l'écho de ce qu'a dit l'ambassadeur de France. Si on veut changer quelque chose, il y a très probablement une question de méthode, calendrier. Les évaluations arrivent trop tard, je ne suis pas sûr, mais ce qui manque, c'est que entre les évaluations et le moment où nous nous saisissons du problème, il n'y a pas assez de temps. Donc, il faudrait réfléchir de voir si on ne doit pas mettre une année de plus. Ça, c'est un point. Et puis le deuxième point qui est, à mon sens, le plus important, tout ce processus, tout ce qui est dans notre tête a un impact financier, un impact sur les ressources, Madame la Présidente. Et de ça, personne n'en a parlé. Je crois pouvoir dire avec beaucoup d'honnêteté et beaucoup de compréhension que le centre, d'un côté, les organisations consultatives de l'autre, quand on voit le tableau des démarches et des contacts qu'ils doivent prendre pour faire une évaluation correcte, on l'eau, si je puis m'exprimer ainsi, jusqu'au menton. Et je ne crois pas qu'on peut exiger beaucoup plus sans que les États membres prennent également leurs responsabilités et que par le biais du budget, nous avons un comité du budget qui va d'ailleurs nous faire rapport bientôt, je pense, de ces travaux. Nous allons voir que la situation ne s'améliore pas. Et je crois qu'il faut être conscient de cela et il faut chercher avec beaucoup de détermination des méthodes, justement, qui nous permettent d'étaler les nominations, d'allonger peut-être les questions de temps, etc. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Senegal, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je pense que la Suisse a un peu dit ce que je voulais dire. Je vais donc être bref. Je pense que par rapport aux organisations consultatives, personnellement, l'expérience que j'en ai est très, très positive. On m'a souvent posé beaucoup de questions, des questions écrites. C'était parfois harassant, mais ça nous a toujours aidé à avancer dans le bon sens. Donc le mot transparence me paraît un peu trop fort, mais peut-être qu'il y a d'autres expériences. Par contre, là où j'ai vu vraiment beaucoup de difficultés, c'est au niveau des programmations. Parfois, ils programment de venir pour une période fixe, ils n'ont pas d'autre choix. Il me souvient qu'on devait une fois regarder un parc ornithologique. Ils ont donné une programmation, ce n'était pas la bonne, mais on a dû la faire. Seulement les oiseaux étaient partis parce qu'ils n'avaient pas demandé de visa. L'autre problème qui se pose, qui est évident, la Suisse l'a dit, il faut des moyens pour qu'ils puissent faire tout ce travail-là et peut-être aussi un peu plus de temps. Donc l'un dans l'autre, je pense que les groupes de travail que nous avons réalisés vont nous aider à tirer des conclusions et on va travailler à mettre en cohérence tout cela pour que le travail, la fluidité entre le centre, les organisations consultatives et les États partis que nous sommes puissent être meilleurs. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Estonia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. I will also be very brief as many things which came into my mind were also said by Swiss delegation that if we really wish to have a better work, I think we should be aware of the financial and budgetary consequences, and we should try to provide the advisory bodies with the necessary resources in this respect. But in general, I think we can express our gratitude towards the advisory bodies and congratulate them for the work they've been doing. So it hasn't always been easy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It seems to me that we have very good and fruitful discussion, which we can continue when we will discuss the budget and other items. So I see two more speakers. United Arab Emirates, please, floor is yours.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. أنا أعتذر لأخذ الكلمة في هذا الموضوع للمرة الثانية لأني عبرت عن رأيي من قبل، ولكن بعد سماع الزملاء الأعزاء من سويسرا ومن استونيا بدا الأمر وكأني على الأقل إذا كان غيري لم يحس بهذا اللبس كأننا لم نعبر عن تقديرنا للدور الذي تقوم به الهيئات الاستشارية ومركز التراث العالمي. على العكس نحن نقدر هذه الجهود، ولولا هذه الجهود لما كانت هذه اللجنة مستمرة في متابعة وفي الحرص على إداء مهامها تجاه تراثنا العالمي. أنا أشيد بملاحظات الزميلين بضرورة أن لا نكتفي بإلقاء النصح، هذا بالفعل، ولكننا عندما عبرنا عن هذه المسائل هو كان رغبة منا في انتهاج وسائل جديدة لمساعدة الهيئات الاستشارية، وأيضا الاستفادة من خبرة هذه الهيئات في إداء مهمتها حتى يتطور أسلوب عملنا إلى الأفضل. نحن نؤيد كل ما من شأنه تسهيل هذه المهمة بما فيه البحث عن موارد لدعم هذه الهيئات ومركز التراث العالمي. شكرا.
Thank you very much. I see India. So I have two other speakers who wants to take the floor, not members of the committee. What is your opinion? We give the floor to not members of the committee now? Only if we can limit by these two countries who ask the floor. So Barbados, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee members. I just wanted to add my voice in terms of the issue with the factual errors which Germany articulated so well. I recall that I made this comment last year, and I would reiterate the point that once the questions under the factual errors have been accepted by the committee and by the advisory body, that this document becomes a formal part of the nomination dossier and the relevant documents. In this regard, those documents go on the website. The evaluation is on the website. I therefore recommend that the acceptance of the factual errors also means that that document too should appear on the website. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Yemen, floor is yours.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. في البدء نشكر لكم هذه اللفتة الكريمة، ونعتقد أننا لم نأتي إلى الاجتماع كضيوف فقط، ولكن يمكن أن تستمعوا إلى بعض الملاحظات التي نطرحها. اليمن سيدة الرئيسة والأعضاء اللجنة والزملاء كنز من التراث الإنساني في كثير من المجالات، وما نفتقر إليه هو الكادر الذي يمكن أن يعد للملفات وتقديم الترشيحات وفق ما طلبه لجنة التراث العالمي، كما أننا أيضا نفتقر إلى الإمكانات المالية أو المادية والفنية. فهل لنا أن نطلب المساعدة منكم في إرسال بعثة إلى اليمن لمساعدتنا في هذه المسألة. هذه البعثة يمكن أن تطلع على الأوضاع في زبيد وصنعاء القديمة وشبام، وتقديم أفكار ومناقشة الجهات المسؤولة عن التراث المادي وغير المادي في كيفية تصحيح أوضاعهم. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, of course, I suppose that mission can be organized to Yemen. And it seems to me that this discussion, which I suppose we will undertake under the other items of our agenda, we will continue such discussion, and it will be the matter for the working group, which I hope we set up for the future to discuss all these problems. But before we go to nomination, we all the time say before we go to nomination, I understand that everybody is waiting for nomination. I am obliged to give the floor to IUCN and ICOMOS. Please, IUCN, I see you in front. Please take the floor.
Thanks, Chair. Just to perhaps respond, and I think as it's a dialogue, it's important to just react. I think firstly, just to emphasize, as I did after the interventions after 5B, that we welcome this reflection, and it's also helpful to now start to identify some of the tangible points that states parties have, and perhaps I can just speak to one or two of them. I mean, firstly, I think it will be very helpful in that dialogue to quickly get to some of the things that are already in our systems that respond to some of the points that are made. So, for instance, both we and ICOMOS have already rules that exclude saying the national from a country being involved in evaluating a site from that country. We can deal, I think, quickly with points about the membership of panels, etc. On the issues that are more difficult, I just want to note four. Firstly, there was a direct question, I think, from India at the start of this debate about making our advice to the committee public, to state parties before the 6-week deadline before the committee. And at the moment, we are not permitted to do that. And also the calendar also would make it difficult because we're working really right up to very close to the 6 weeks. But we have an explicit understanding at the moment that we are developing documents that are seen as committee documents. They are for the committee and not for the state party, and therefore we are asked to not share the eventual final conclusions with the state party before the committee knows those conclusions. And I think perhaps a change in that working method could be reflected upon, and we'd certainly be interested to engage in that discussion. Second would be the question of referral and deferral, and a referral when that is granted by the committee, when a deferral is recommended, as we've noted on repeated occasions, can create quite significant difficulties in addressing the issues that the committee may be noting are problematic, because it does not allow us the dialogue that is possible through a mission. It expressly does not permit us to do that. And then lastly, just really the 2 points that were raised on calendar and budget, and to underline, firstly, we're working in an extremely tight calendar at the moment, and so the opportunity to discuss what is the interaction between the state party only really happens for us once our panel has completed its deliberations, and we have a firm position which we've understood and debated to be discussed with the state party. And we would welcome, I think, a reflection on the opportunities for dialogue at that point, but the calendar at the moment, I think, cannot accommodate for many of the nominations the level of discussion that is required. And lastly is the question of budget. And just to note that we are in a situation with radical downward pressure on the budget. We've introduced into this biennium, beyond what was foreseen, a 9.2% cut in the budget for all of the advisory bodies. And the requests that are being made are, in essence, requests for additional work. And I think we do need to join the dots here between what is requested and what means are available, so we do not ask for something that it is not possible to deliver. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I also say that ICOMOS welcomes this discussion. We consider there are many challenges that need addressing, and we do, in fact, have frustrations from our side as well. during the presentation I made, I did suggest that we were concerned to maintain a dialogue with state parties throughout the evaluation process to the greatest extent possible. And that, I think, is the issue. What is the greatest extent possible, and within the limits of the resources and within the limits of the current provisions of the operational guidelines. As my colleague from IUCN has said, we have a very, very small window of opportunity between when we hold our panels in November and when we have to finalize our nominations ready for translation. It is a very, very short space of time. We would certainly like to have more dialogue with state parties, but we also think the issue of dialogue goes back to before the nominations are submitted. And certainly in the various meetings, international meetings that have been held over the last few years, and the evolution of the upstream processes, I think we are all beginning to see many promising opportunities for having dialogue at an earlier stage to make sure that better nominations come forward and we can resolve issues before things are submitted and before we are squeezed into a very tight process. Certainly at the moment we find we can have a dialogue with state parties over factual matters. We find it much more difficult to have a dialogue with state parties where the whole nomination needs to be reconfigured or readjusted, or the property presented in a different way. We just don't have the resources at the moment or the time to debate those more fundamental issues. But that is not to say that we do not wish to do so. And I would like to stress that we welcome the idea of a working group when both sides can put on the table the issues to be addressed. And we hope look at some way forward. And particularly if it's possible to set out the ideal and then to set out what we can do within the limited resources and what we could do if we were able to bring in more resources to the system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, my dear colleagues, I suppose that we can, finish with our discussion on this item. And now we move on to the nomination to be proceed on an emergency basis. And this nomination is Birthplace of Jesus, Church of the Nativity and the Pilgrimage Route, Bethlehem, Palestine. The criteria proposed by State Party 4 and 6. Draft decision is in document 36com 8B.5. Now, I invite ICOMOS to present the details of the proposed nomination of Birthplace of Jesus, Church of the Nativity and the Pilgrimage Route, Bethlehem, Palestine. The draft decision relating to this nomination are to be found in the addendum document WHC 12/36.com/8B.ed. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would now like to present the ICOMOS evaluation of the Church of the Nativity and the Pilgrimage Route at Bethlehem. Next slide, please. This nomination has been submitted with a request that it be processed on an emergency basis. In compliance with paragraph 161 of the operational guidelines, ICOMOS has been requested to ascertain first whether this property unquestionably meets the criteria, and secondly, whether this property has suffered damage or faces serious and specific dangers from natural events or human activities. The nomination was submitted by the State Party as an emergency nomination, as the property is considered to have suffered greatly from the lack of proper regulation and restoration works because of the political situation in the area and region since 1967. In order to consider this threat, ICOMOS arranged a technical visit to the property and was given access to part of the property, the Church of the Nativity, but not its surrounding monastic buildings. Next slide, please. Here is a map showing the location of the property. Next slide, please. and a further map showing the nominated area and its buffer zone. The red and dark blue and the line are nominated. The paler blue is the buffer zone. Next slide, please. In terms of category, this is a group of buildings. In the nomination, it was said that this was put forward as the first part of a serial nomination, but the State Party has since written to say that the serial approach is now not going to be followed. Next slide, please. The Church of the Nativity was originally constructed in 399 AD above a cave, traditionally acknowledged since at least the 2nd century AD as being the birthplace of Jesus. Since medieval times, the church has become increasingly embedded within a complex of mainly ecclesiastical buildings, including Greek Orthodox, Franciscan, Armenian convents. During various periods over the past 1,500 years, Bethlehem and the Church of the Nativity have been major pilgrim destinations. Next slide, please. Bethlehem lies 10 kilometers south of Jerusalem in the fertile limestone hills of the biblical Ephraim. The town developed on one moderately sized hill, with the Church of the Nativity on a second, nearby. Until around 100 years ago, the Church of the Nativity and its surrounding walled monastic complexes dominated an open terrace landscape. It was described in 1887 as looking like a large feudal castle. Next slide, please. Pilgrims taking the route from Jerusalem to Bethlehem would have seen the fortress-like church rising above the landscape, and they would have approached it through the Damascus gate seen in this engraving. Next slide, please. Today, the town has spread around the church and out into that landscape, leaving only the comparatively recent bell towers rising above the buildings. Its massive buttress walls are now largely hidden from all but close views. The center of Bethlehem, consisting of the two hills and the extent of the settlement that existed at the end of the 19th century, has been delineated as a historic center for management and conservation processes, and this forms the buffer zone for the nominated area. Next slide, please. The nominated buildings are the Church of the Nativity, seen here in red, and the Latin, Greek Orthodox, Franciscan, and Armenian convents and churches, seen in blue, that cluster around the church. The yellow area is garden terraces. Next slide, please. The church is approached across Manger Square, which is seen here. Next slide, please. Garden terraces to the east are one of the few remaining open areas in the town. Next slide, please. By the 2nd century AD, a cave at Bethlehem had become venerated as the birthplace of Jesus, and under the patronage of the Roman Empire Constantine, a church was built above and around the cave. Next slide, please. The first church was completed in 399 AD. Its octagonal sanctuary allowed worshippers to look down into the traditional manger. And adjoining this was a 5-aisle basilica church with massive columns to the west and an open atrium, the plans at the top of your slide. This first church was demolished after a fire in the 6th century, but its highly elaborate mosaic floor survived. The 6th century rebuilding under the Emperor Justinian kept the form of the nave, but incorporated the cave under an apse chancel. Next slide, please. The basic structure of this 2nd, 6th century church survives and is what is seen today. The new church has 46 columns of red limestone. On 30 of them are traces of paintings that belong to a 12th century Crusader renovation of the church. The images are of the heavenly hierarchy, saints, bishops, and so on. In Crusader times, 2 walls of the nave and the chancel apse were also decorated with mosaics, fragments of which remain and can perhaps just be seen in this slide. Next slide, please. Beneath the present nave floor lies the remains of the original pattern mosaic floor from the 5th century church. Next slide. 2 flights of steps lead down from the aisles of the church to the cave of the Nativity, and its marble floor is ornamented with a star to mark the birthplace of Jesus. The walls of the cave and the lower grotto are adorned with marble colonnettes of the Crusader period. Next slide, please. Within the church are 16th and 17th century icons. Next slide, please. Since medieval times, the church has become incorporated into a complex of mainly monastic buildings. The church for Roman Catholics, since their exclusion in the late 13th century, is shown here. Its present building was constructed in the 19th century. And it was recently extended for the Millennium celebrations. Next slide, please. Within the Armenian convent are the earliest and most substantial parts of the monastic complex, dating from the 12th century, seen here with the cross-vaulted roofs. Next slide, please. The Greek Orthodox convent includes a massive tower of fine rusticated masonry constructed in the 12th century, perhaps on a 6th century base. Next slide, please. A short section of the pilgrimage route from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, which follows the historical route, is also included in the nominated area. It is used for the procession of the patriarchs at Christmas. The paved road, as an urban street, is barely 200 years old. Many of the large one-story houses and shops incorporate Romano-Byzantine building techniques, but these are not included in the nominated area. New slide, please. And there's some views of the pilgrimage route along Star Street. Next slide, please. And this is a picture of the remains of the Damascus Gate. Next slide, please. Within the nomination dossier, the brief comparative analysis suggests that Bethlehem is, quote, genuinely unique in the proper sense of that word, and to seek analogues in a World Heritage context may mislead and possibly demean, end of quotes. ICOMOS considers that this very brief comparative analysis cannot really be said to be complete, but that a more thorough analysis could justify inclusion of the property on the World Heritage List. Without an evaluation mission, and with few details in the dossier on the state of conservation, ICOMOS has not been able to assess authenticity and integrity. We have looked at the justification for criterion 4, and ICOMOS considers that the fabric of the church and its monastic ensemble do reflect two significant stages in human history: the conversion of the Roman Empire to Christianity, which led to the development of the church on the site, and to the power and influence of Christianity in the period of the Crusades, that led to the development of the monastic communities and to the embellishments of the church. We do think that the property has the capacity to justify this criterion, but a full study of the attributes that convey its value need to be undertaken. Similarly, for criterion 6, we consider that the church associated with the birth of Jesus, an event of outstanding universal significance, which can, through the buildings which have been developed on the site in the 5th century, one can see this association. And again, we consider the property has the capacity to justify this criterion, but a full study of the attributes that convey its value need to be undertaken. In the absence of full mission, it has not been possible to assess boundaries, protection, conservation, and management. Next slide, please. Having considered the potential for the sites to satisfy the criteria, I would now like to present ICOMOS's views on the issues of threats, which was the second issue we were asked to address. The emergency threat is stated by the State Party to be the present state of conservation of the Church of the Nativity. This is said to be not good in terms of its roof and the potential for water ingress. These are caused both by a lack of repair and a lack of regular maintenance. The nomination states that because of these threats, the church could be considered endangered. An ICOMOS cathedral conservation architect undertook a technical visit to the church. Access was provided to the interior of the Church of the Nativity at floor level and to the upper surfaces of the main roof. The expert thus was able to get a close-up view of some of the selected parts of the roof structure and of the exterior of most parts of the church, as well as a partial view of the nave walls and of parts of the eastern apses. The expert was also given access to recent technical reports on the state of conservation of the roof that had been undertaken in advance of a major program of work to repair the roof. The nomination states that active measures to address the roof problems in the Church of the Nativity are about to start. What has held back conservation work, it is stated, has been the lack of collaboration between the Greek Orthodox Church, the Armenian Church, and the Franciscan Order, something which it is stated which has not happened for 1,000 years. Now, through a presidential decree, Palestine, in cooperation with the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate, the custody of the Holy Land, and the Armenian Orthodox Patriarchate, has jointly formed a committee for the restoration of the church. Surveys and assessments have already started, and work will commence soon. It is these surveys that were made available to the ICOMOS expert. Next slide, please. The expert has observed that the outer lead coverings are clearly of some antiquity, perhaps as early as the 15th century. Whatever their date, the roof coverings are immediately recognizable as the same as those published in photographs of 1935. The roofs have been patched with bituminous roofing felt, some recent, some older, and now many decayed, and none of which have had much effect in keeping out the rain. The current timber structure of the church is said in the dossier to date mainly from the repairs of 1842. However, some of the timbers could date from the 17th century or much earlier, as it appears that at no time has a comprehensive replacement of the fabric been made. The timber roof structure appears to be the same as recorded in 1935, and the damaged areas which appear in the photographs of that date are still clearly visible, and only minor works are reported to have been done since then. From ground level, many signs of water penetration were visible, though clearly most of these are long-standing. Some at ground level were possibly caused by water drawn up from below, and so on. The technical expert who undertook the mission considered that the problems facing the fabric of the church are grave, with water penetration continuing, but these conditions are long-standing. Detailed inspections and studies, which have recently been carried out by an international consortium for the State Party, has assessed the condition in all parts of the fabric using scaffolding to gain access to virtually all parts of the building. If any areas had been considered by that team to be under any threat of sudden loss, they would have ensured that temporary measures to secure them would have been taken while scaffolding was in place. Consequently, from a technical point of view, the technical expert did not consider that the present state of affairs could be described as an emergency. Next slide, please. As a result of this technical mission, ICOMOS concludes that the present ICOMOS does not consider that the present nomination demonstrates that the Church of the Nativity has suffered damage or faces serious or specific dangers as to make its condition an emergency in accordance with paragraphs 161 and 162 of the operational guidelines, in a way that needs to be addressed by the committee with immediate action necessary for the survival of the property. Next slide, please. Accordingly, ICOMOS recommends that the nomination of this property be resubmitted for the normal evaluation process in order to allow a proper assessment of integrity, authenticity, and conservation, and proper consideration of management arrangements and of the appropriate boundaries for the property in relation to links with the surrounding town. Next slide. Next slide, please. As I said earlier, the potential serial nomination is not now going to be taken forward, but in conclusion, ICOMOS will be ready and willing to offer any support as may be appropriate as part of the upstream advice processes to work with the State Party on this nomination. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. So, floor is open. And please raise your nameplates, and we will set up the list of speakers. Senegal, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. J'ai suivi avec beaucoup d'attention l'exposé de l'ICOMOS, et à propos du problème de l'absence d'urgence, j'ai entre les mains un rapport de près de 1000 pages exposant les conclusions d'un consortium coordonné par le professeur Claudia Alessandrini et regroupant des chercheurs des universités de Ferrari, de Rome et de Sienne, ainsi que des techniciens de Community Development Group, du SCDS, de Benecom et du CNR Ivalsa, mandatée par les autorités palestiniennes. Cette mission, après de longs travaux d'expertise et d'analyse des structures de la maçonnerie, des structures du toit et des poutres porteuses, des fuites et infiltrations des eaux de pluie, de l'état géotechnique des fondations, de l'état des mosaïques et des fresques, aboutit à des conclusions opposées à celles de l'ICOMOS. Pour toutes ces raisons, Madame la Présidente, il nous semble que l'urgence est justifiée. Merci.
Thank you very much. Estonia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I recall to the debate we had on Monday about the role of advisory bodies. The reason why Estonia usually trusts the reports by advisory bodies is that we are a tiny country with limited resources, and we can't dispatch out our own experts to each corner of the world to check whether the experts of advisory bodies have worked properly or not. But here we are in a lucky situation that I myself have recently visited the property, and I can confirm you that the ICOMOS report is absolutely adequate. The property is in a poor condition, like majority of the monuments in the region. The only remark what I have towards the evaluation report is that maybe I don't see so big potential for the criterion 4 in the future to be justified. The criterion 6 would be much more substantial. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Who have the floor? If nobody, we can move on to the... Yes, Algeria, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais m'adresser à l'Estonie pour être rassuré, moi qui suis de confession musulmane. Nous parlons bien de l'église de la Nativité, de là où est né Jésus de Nazareth, le Messie, le prophète, qui oserait entre nous, ne serait-ce qu'un seul instant, douter du caractère universel, exceptionnel, je dirais même, qui transcende l'exceptionnalité de ce haut lieu de la mémoire, ce lieu fondateur de la religion chrétienne. Or voilà que des voix s'élèvent pour rejeter cette caractéristique d'urgence. Moi, j'aurais souhaité, c'est-à-dire que ce soit l'ICOMOS, donc porté par ce site emblématique, elle-même qui décrète le caractère d'urgence, et c'est aux États parties de donner leur point de vue. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. South Africa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've had the presentation by ICOMOS, and I think everyone agrees about the state of the Church of Bethlehem as a Christian, myself, which is a very important part of our history. There seems to be an agreement about the state of the church, but there seems to be a disagreement around the emergency regarding this issue. ICOMOS said in their presentation that the situation is grave but long-standing. Now, I I want to think about this long-standing, because maybe long-standing is 100 years, and you may find that 100 years ago or 10 years ago, the situation was bad, but it wasn't grave. Now it is grave, and when it's grave, it doesn't matter that it's long-standing, it may collapse the following day. But since I'm not such an expert on that, I was thinking if it would be possible to invite probably ICROM, who has extensive experience on working in the area and specific experience as well in this particular site, probably if they could give us their view as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, first I will look if somebody else from members of the committee wants to take the floor, and then I will give the floor to ICROM. India, please take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I heard the distinguished ambassador of Senegal, and he quoted from a very extensive report which he has gone through with great thoroughness. I have a question. Was this not available to ICOMOS? Did they not have access to these documents and to the corpus of literature that seems to be available and distributed or known? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So first of all, I will give to ICOMOS to answer this question, and then ICROM, floor will be yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Indeed, yes. I did mention in my presentation, perhaps it wasn't sufficiently clear, that the ICOMOS technical expert who went on the visit was shown this report. He went through it, and he had opportunity to discuss it with some of the experts who had compiled it. This was the report I mentioned. It's a very thorough report, and this is the report that will be used as a basis for the program of work which will shortly start. So there is certainly no disagreement between the ICOMOS expert and the experts who have undertaken that report. The only issue is the church in such a state that it's emergency? We must act now, not before next year, if you like. That is the issue we have to assess, whether immediate action is needed. And it was certainly the opinion of the ICOMOS expert in consultation with the experts on the site that that was not the case, notwithstanding the fact that it's clearly necessary for a program of work to the roof to begin, and the State Party has planned this, and once permission has been given, formal permission, this work will start.
Thank you very much. ICROM, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Sur ce sujet-là, l'ICROM va donner la parole à mon prédécesseur, Mounir Bouchnaki.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Effectivement, l'ICROM a été sollicité très exactement en novembre 2010 par les autorités palestiniennes en vue d'analyser 11 dossiers qui ont été présentés sur la base d'un appel d'offres international par les autorités palestiniennes en vue de la restauration de l'église de la Nativité. J'étais alors directeur général de l'ICROM et j'ai constitué un comité au sein de l'ICROM composé de mes collègues, M. Joe King, ici présent, M. Gamini Vigesouria, ici présent, et M. Zaki Aslan, qui est actuellement en mission. Nous avons analysé attentivement les 11 dossiers présentés par des universités ou des groupements d'experts comprenant architectes, ingénieurs, spécialistes de restauration des fresques, des mosaïques, spécialistes d'analyse du bois et de la dendrochronologie. Et nous avons soumis un rapport aux autorités palestiniennes en choisissant les 3 firmes ou groupements d'experts qui présentaient les qualités évidentes et d'expérience dans le domaine technique et scientifique pour la restauration de ce monument. Dans tous ces dossiers, il était indiqué l'importance d'intervenir rapidement, notamment sur la toiture, parce qu'il y a des infiltrations d'eau. Nous savons tous, et travaillant tous dans le domaine du patrimoine, que l'eau est l'un des plus grands dangers pour les monuments. L'infiltration de l'eau dans les parties supérieures de la basilique, qui arrive jusqu'au niveau des pavements et notamment qui affecte les pavements en mosaïque. Nous avons donc considéré que ces travaux devaient être entrepris rapidement et nous avons rapidement renvoyé les résultats de notre étude aux autorités palestiniennes, pensant que ces travaux devaient être rapidement mis en œuvre compte tenu de l'importance de ce monument insigne du patrimoine de l'humanité. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. So, dear colleagues, now it's 1 o'clock, and I would like to wish you bon appétit. But you know, I suppose if we decide that our discussion, preliminary discussion, is closed, so we directly will go to the draft decision after the lunch. And before we leave the room, I give the floor to Mechtel, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We have a number of announcements. First of all, the budget group will meet in the library room at 2 p.m. We have also the pleasure to invite the delegations of Central Eastern, Southeastern European region to come to a meeting with ICROM and the World Heritage Center. It's an information meeting to present the initiative on capacity building strategy for the sub-region, and it takes place in room 11 at 2 p.m. Furthermore, for the Asia-Pacific countries, there's a meeting on follow-up to periodic reporting with the Category 2 Center, which will take place in room 16 from 1 to 2 with lunch provided. Then you have also discovered the 4th World Heritage Youth Forum, a project by the Spanish Ministry of Education, Culture and Sport, and that takes place in Hall 1 and room 115 from 1 to 3 with coffee and pastries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And one more. I would like to ask member states, please join the budget group, because they're not a big group and it's very, very important question. Please.